I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. So excited to have you joining us today. A massive show with a very special, and I mean very special guest. You won't want to miss this interview coming up. But before you can even get to that interview, before you can hear this amazing person's story, their journey, before you can hear anything, you got to be following us on social media. Couple reasons why. Reason number one, hey, listen, I need the followers, all right? I need the volume, and it'd be really cool to have more followers. Number two, if you want to know what's going on in the locker room's life, you got to be on our social media because everything that I post is on social media. So I'm not going to text you what's coming up. So if you want to know, follow us on social media. And number three, if you're on social media, why not just add me in the first place? Like, that makes perfect sense, right? So, if you need to know where you can find us, The Locker Room Podcast 615 on Instagram, The Locker Room Host Jacob on Facebook, TLR with Jacob on Twitter, and The Locker Room 22 on TikTok. And TikTok is growing, and it's a lot of fun, so join us on TikTok. This episode, of course, is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your gym needs. Clothing, weights, supplements, recoveries, everything you need to build a bigger and better you. Go to FNX Fit. Use your promo code TLRHOST. That is TLRHOST, all capitals, for 15% off your order. So I told you we had a very special guest today, and I was not letting you down. She is a UFC flyweight. She is 10-2, getting ready to make that 11-2 in her upcoming fight at UFC 260. One of the baddest women fighters around today. Let's bring her in. All right, and now we would like to welcome in our very special guest, a UFC flyweight, a champion in the making. I would like to add to that. I'm predicting it now. Miss Miranda Maverick, welcome into the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Well, as always, with all my guests, I want to know the nitty-gritty details. I want to know how you got started into fighting, how you fell in love with it. Where did that passion come from?
So it started out, I would wrestle at home, roughhouse, with my dad and my siblings when I was pretty young. And as I grew up, I decided I wanted to go seek if I was actually good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We had been watching the UFC for quite a while, basically my whole childhood. And that's how we learned actual techniques. We weren't just, piling into each other and trying to wrestle around. We had a lot of technique with it, and my dad would work with us and just teach us some stuff over time through watching videos and watching the UFC. So when I decided I wanted to go to an actual gym and learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he was very supportive of me and went to my first gym when I was almost 17 years old. And I like to say that first gym was almost a joke, but they had a juvenile class, and I was very uncomfortable at the time rolling with men. So I joined that juvenile class, rolled with boys that were basically teenagers like me. Within 2 weeks, I fell in love with it, grew such a passion for it, was beating up all the boys and grown men in the adult classes there that I decided to go ahead and jump into. Decided I wanted to start competing within just a few weeks. That gym specifically didn't allow competition, which was amusing to me. So I left that same day and started training at a different gym, Springfield Fight Club in Springfield, Missouri. That was my home until I moved here to graduate school in Norfolk, Virginia. And now I go to the House of Muay Thai. But that passion that I grew from jiu-jitsu just turned into something more over time. I watched a couple amateur fights live, thought that the women fights were really embarrassing and that I could do better. Even though I had no striking experience whatsoever and had never really gotten any fights ever. And my coaches were like, hey, don't make fun of it until you've gotten punched in the face. But then, when I trained and after a few weeks of just training jiu-jitsu and striking, I knew it was exactly what I needed to have. So I jumped right into doing MMA as soon as I could. I turned 18 and moved to college shortly thereafter, which was the legal age limit for having MMA fights in Missouri. And, the rest is history.
All right. So growing up, who were your favorite fighters to watch? I know you had mentioned Ronda Rousey a few times. And of course, I mean, I feel like Ronda Rousey was kind of the first woman fighter that like everybody just absolutely fell in love with. But were there any other special ones that you had a connection with growing up?
Yeah, Ronda Rousey was the first woman I saw fight. I wouldn't necessarily even say that she was my favorite fighter at all, but she definitely was a pioneer for the sport.
Oh yeah.
Therefore, I never not credit that. You know, she definitely made the sport big, and I watched her fight, and it was inspirational. But others that I continue to be inspired by are GSP. He's one of my favorite out there. I liked him and Matt Hughes for the longest time. I thought they were great fighters, and it sucked because they were always fighting each other. But
Yeah.
uh, pretty cool. I'm actually in a documentary now with Matt Hughes, so I'm really excited to meet him in person. But GSP has also been a huge role model.
Yeah.
As I grew up and kept getting older, Brian Stan became one of my favorites. And people are like, really? And it's not even his fighting style. I think he's just a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And I've kind of just followed his career and his family life and all that, and was really inspired by that. It was kind of out of the ordinary for an MMA fighter background.
Well, you definitely have good taste. I'll point that out right now. You definitely have good taste in fighters. GSP, of course, one of my all-time favorites for sure.
Thank you. And then as far as the girls go, Rose Namajunas has always been a great one to look up to and watch.
Okay.
She's developed. The fighter has been crazy to me. And Tatiana Suarez, her technique, I think I can definitely start using that within fights if I wanted to.
Wow. I mean, great role models to come from. Absolutely. So you said you went ahead and went to college and you're studying, I think it was psychology. And I found that interesting because my wife is actually a sports psychologist. So I know what it's like living with the psychologist in the household, always constantly poking and, trying to get more out of me intellectually. But how did you balance, college and especially psychology, which is such a hard field, and still have time to MMA train and stay up, in the shape that you've been in?
Yeah, first off, I'm really excited about sports psychology. I actually want to get in contact with her and talk to her a little bit if that's the case, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
I'm actually right now getting my PhD in industrial psychology, but I try to focus on sports and athletes a little bit. My thesis is actually over how COVID has affected gym employees and things.
That's my
Yeah,
wife's.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Very
so
cool.
working on that right now, trying to finish up my thesis, get my master's, and work on towards that PhD,
Yeah.
which I've done all my classes for. My undergraduate was psychology and sociology.
Nice.
But it's hard. It's not an easy thing. Everybody always told me it was impossible. Everybody told me to take my time, take my 5-6 years in undergrad if I needed to.
Yeah.
Always just like, no, like age doesn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't have anything to do with me taking my time and enjoying my childhood, as they called it.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in college, I'm not a child anymore, and it's
Yeah.
funny how nowadays society, even when you go and fill out your college forms, my dad got pretty mad because he's a pretty traditional person. He was like, why do you need my financial information? I'm not paying for you. Like, you're a grown-ass woman. Like, go take care of yourself. And I'm like, I agree. But all the kids at the age of 24 are still on their parents' dime and stuff.
Yeah.
When it used to be, 17, 18 max kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was for me. My dad's always supportive. I don't want to say that at all. Like, if I needed help, he'd help me.
Yeah.
But I need help. I shouldn't need help.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me. And being able to dedicate my time to MMA, and my cat's back here, to MMA and school, that's all I did. And I had enough time for it because that's all I did. I didn't go out and socialize and have a bunch of drinks with friends time or goof off and take breaks. I did my schoolwork, got it done, and then focused on my MMA. Now, I will say it was fine in undergrad. Really, it was easy.
Yeah.
But now it's very, very difficult for me. Grad school is a whole nother level of hard. It's like having
Yeah.
3 full jobs.
Yeah.
I spend about 40 hours a week just purely being in classes and working on homework.
Yeah.
I spend another 30 hours a week doing my teaching, which I do for them. I teach the undergrads at Old Dominion University, so I work on that for several hours a week. And then on top of that, training 5 to 6 hours a day is it's grueling and it's stressful. Yeah. But it's one of those things I tell everybody, I'm like, it's not one of those things, they're like, you inspire me. How do you do it? I want to do it. I'm like, don't do it. Like the best advice I have for you is don't do that unless you really have like not only dedication, but know that you have that self-control, that you won't start getting emotional and go down this rabbit hole of stress.
Yeah. That like being that young and already being so dedicated to what, to MMA and to be so dedicated to college, it seems like most people, when they find a passion, they kind of go down that road and they leave school away or vice versa. For you to be able to do both of those is already remarkable. And trust me, I'm living with my wife who's finishing up her master's right now. So like, she teaches all the undergrads, and like, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And that's all I work so that she can just do that, let alone do that and train MMA and be a part of the UFC. Like, that is a massive world to be around. So, I mean, congratulations already. I feel like you've already won a couple championships of life just finishing out those hard things. So that was very interesting. Now, moving on, you have a big fight coming up, of course. The fight that was rescheduled, UFC 260. You will be fighting Jillian Robertson. All right, so I know you don't want to give away too many details, too many secrets, and I would never ask you to. But what is your approach to this fight? Because you both are so talented on the ground. She has, 6+ submission. You have 5, I think, submission wins. So, like, you both are very talented on the ground. Do you see this as a fight that is going to end up on the ground for most of the match? Do you see your striking taking advantage here? Because I will say, I know you grew up on a farm. And I think one of your best attributes is the fact that you're a lot stronger than a lot of your opponents, especially in this division. And that's just natural born strength from, growing up on a farm and working all the way through. So I think that in this matchup, strength is going to play a big part in it, who can control the center of the octagon. So if you, without giving away too many details, what is your thought process going into this fight?
A lot of what you said actually kind of works into it. One, I truly believe that I'm not only the stronger opponent, but the more physical in general. I'm more athletic. I'm stronger than her, and she doesn't do well against her opponents who are that way.
Yeah.
For that, I feel like our ground game is comparable. Let's say she is a couple notches ahead of me. She's a black belt. I'm a brown belt.
Yeah.
That mean much to me. I think that I dominate on the ground pretty easily, especially when I get on top of somebody.
Yeah.
But I know what her game plan is. Like, she's pretty, translucent about it. She's like, I'm going to go for a single leg because that's the only takedown she seems to have. And she's going to be on her back the whole time. And I'm like, it's not that easy to hold me on my back the whole time. Yeah. But I anticipate it going to the ground at some point, but my aim isn't necessarily to take it there. If she wants to and she just keeps going for it and we happen on the ground, I'm fine. I'm confident there. I'm actually really excited to go on the ground with her. But I definitely think my striking is way better than hers, like exponentially. So I hope that I can just show every area of my game and it being stronger than her. I think my wrestling's a lot better than hers. I think my striking's a lot better than hers. And I think my ground game's comparable to hers.
Yeah, and I would definitely say the fact that you're so much stronger than her, I think even if she has a couple of notches in the ground game above you, let's just say that, I think that your strength is going to help balance that out a lot too, because it's going to be hard to control somebody who can out muscle you when you're on the ground too. The interesting thing about this fight, you see the Vegas odds, so to speak, keep going up and down, and right now I think you're glimpsing as the favorite because people are saying her experience is going to carry her through. Well, I like the young fighters, especially in the UFC. I've latched onto a lot of these young fighters. Being that you're not as experienced, technically in professional fights, like, what is your mindset going into the octagon when you have some more experienced fighters on the other side? Does that ever make you nervous at all?
No, it really doesn't. I'm used to being the underdog. The last couple fights, luckily, I've been the favorite. That's been exciting. Or not couple fights. The Liana Jojua fight, I was the favorite. That was really exciting for me. But I'm used to being the underdog, and I honestly love it. It motivates me even more when I am. And I don't care if she has more experience than me. And that's just talking about in the octagon specifically. As far as actual experience, we aren't too far apart. Yeah. She's pretty young. She's had a lot more experience in the octagon, but I feel like I've had pretty good opponents leading up to this.
Absolutely.
I have a good background leading into this. I have partners who can kick my butt way worse than she ever could. And that makes me very hopeful going into this fight. But on top of that, experience really doesn't matter. It's just like the whole thing we were talking about people being like, well, you're too young, you're this, you're that. Yeah, everybody says stuff until you're put on your face by that young person who's 18 and comes in there and whoops your butt, which is who I point. Now I'm 23 and hoping to do the same thing.
So do you think, going back to do you think your psychology degree in your field of psychology. Do you think that's helping you as a fighter? Because you seem to be mentally above a lot of your opponents, and just in our conversation, our short conversation, you seem to be mentally well ahead of your years. Do you think that, did you choose your field in college just for the simple fact that you love that, or did you know that that was going to help you later when it came to the fight game?
I didn't know it was going to help me with the fight game specifically. It was something that I enjoyed, and I've always found the way people think to be very interesting. And I also like making lots of money. So that's kind of why I went into, rather than clinical psychology, for instance, where who knows, you might get a job as a high school counselor. I decided to go into industrial psychology, which is much more of like an outlook job right now. So I'm really excited about that career opportunity. However, it has helped me. I wouldn't say my degree specifically has helped me in fighting, but I think having that fight IQ and having a high emotional intelligence and being able to think through your words and be able to talk well is a huge thing, and hopefully something I become known for. I feel like I'm a fairly good public speaker, but on top of that, I know what I'm doing when I walk into that fight, and I'm not sitting there like, well, I have my game plan and that's what I'm going to do. If anything, I want to be that person who's adaptable. I feel like when I walk into a fight and my first plan doesn't work, I'm not like, oh shoot, I've got to try it again and again and again.
Exactly.
Which is what, not to be mean to some fighters, but a lot of fighters, that's all they know how to do is, well, this was my game plan. I can't vary from it because I got told to do this. Like, to be honest, my coaches and I like work together with that. I'm like, here's what I think. And they're like, I agree. Let's put in this, this, and this, and make sure you have these 5 tools to walk in there with just in case. And I try to make sure that I look at every fight as my hardest fight that I'm going into, whether I actually know that I'm going to kick a girl's butt or not. It shouldn't matter. Like, I walk into it thinking it's the hardest fight of my life, because at the end of the day, it's that stepping stone to get me further in life.
Adaptability. This is something that I've said throughout the years. Adaptability is the biggest arsenal I think a fighter can have. Like you said, especially, and I think we've seen it over the last few UFC pay-per-views, we've seen a lot of really good fighters who are really good at one thing get absolutely dominated, because the second someone throws a calf kick and you're a boxer, well, guess what? Boxing's not going to help you too much. So that already, I already feel like you've been in this, you've been in the UFC for 10 years, the way you're talking and the way you're approaching it. So I'm very excited to see where you go. And I'm very excited to see you dominate come UFC 260. Well, I mean, you've given us plenty of your time. At this point, we like to roll out the red carpet. Anything you want to plug, anything you want to do, social medias, whatever, put it out here. Let people know how they can stay connected and watch you dominate come UFC 260.
Yeah, thank you. You already said how to watch me fight. Please go to Instagram and follow me. That's my biggest outlet right now. It's at @fearthemaverick_HOMT, or if you just type in Miranda Maverick, you can pretty much find me on any social media platform. I don't think there's too many out there that have my name. Please follow me. It helps me, but also you might get some good deals and stuff. I have several sponsors that I genuinely like. I try to tell people that a lot of things I post aren't actual ads. I don't get paid for a lot of them. A lot of them are stuff I just enjoy wearing, enjoy eating, like whatever it might be that I'm sharing. A lot of times I'm not getting paid for that. I'm simply doing it because I like the products. So check them out. I also have a lot of friends that have businesses, and I try to support those too, especially with COVID and all the problems with small businesses and stuff. So go out there, try to reach out for that. If you want any merchandise from me, just DM me, send me a message. Trying to get a website hooked up, but haven't gotten that quite yet, but trying to in the next month or so.
Hey, listen, as somebody who's been trying to get a website up, it takes a lot longer than most people think. As always, guys, you know that all of her information will be connected below. Go give her a follow. Make sure you show her some love. Miranda, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and we can't wait to see you fight come UFC 260.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What a joy it was to have Miranda joining us on the show today. Once again, thank you, Miranda. We know here at the locker room that you have a ton on your plate. You're training for a massive fight come UFC 260. You're finishing your degree. You're doing research, all of that, and you still made time for us. So we here at the locker room feel very, very special, and I'm sure the listeners at home do. So thank you for sharing your story. Now, let's talk about something that wasn't a joy. And there is no one that's going to change my mind. The NBA AllStar Game that happened this past week was atrocious. The three-point contest was about the only highlight. The skills challenge was okay. The dunk contest was an absolute joke. I've seen better dunk contests in high school. So, yeah, I've got a lot to say about the NBA All-Star Game. So there was a lot surrounding this year's NBA All-Star Game. You had players like LeBron James and Kevin Durant who absolutely didn't want to do it, didn't want to show up, didn't want to play, repeatedly said, I'll be there physically, but I won't be there mentally. Basically, I'm not going to care, even if I do show up. To the players like Chris Paul, who wanted to play and wanted to make sure that the fans still got the experience that they deserved. So what happens when you have those two mixed emotions from the players? You have the top half of the NBA commissioner board and the commissioner who came out and said at the beginning of the year, like, no, we are not going to have an All-Star Game. Then they said we are, which is what pissed off a lot of the players. Which, here's the deal. We know that COVID's starting to go away. We know things are starting to open up. So the commissioner said, hey, money-wise, this just makes sense. Money-wise, we need this to help keep things afloat, give you all the pay that you deserve. So you have a lot of mixed emotions going around before you even enter this All-Star Game, before you even enter this All-Star Weekend. And I want to preface this by saying I am an NBA All-Star Weekend guru fan. Like, I am a guy who has watched every NBA All-Star Weekend from the celebrity game all the way to, of course, the East versus the West, which we haven't had the last several years. It's been, team captains, which is a lot of fun. I thought that was a really unique twist to it. But I am a junkie when it comes to the NBA All-Star Weekend. So I know a lot of you are probably saying, oh, here goes Jacob just trying to hate on something. Not at all. I am a massive NBA All-Star Weekend fan. I am pro NBA All-Star Weekend, which is a lot more than I can say for the NFL Pro Bowl, because the NFL Pro Bowl is god-awful. All right? So I'm a big NBA All-Star Weekend. I don't expect a lot of defense. I expect a lot of dunks, a lot of threes. I expect really good skills challenges, great three-point contests, and very entertaining dunk contests. I'm the guy that, I grew up watching Nate Robinson and Dwight Howard duke it out. I watched Blake Griffin dunk over a car. I saw, of course, Aaron Gordon with his incredible year with him and Zach LaVine. Like, I've seen great dunk battles all throughout my life, right? So I am a, like I said, a junkie for the All-Star Weekend. So I'm not hating on it just to hate on it. I promise you that. My beef with this year's NBA All-Star Weekend is legitimate. I think I can justify that too. All right? So like I said, you already have mixed emotions coming into this weekend. You have some players that don't want to be there whatsoever, and you could tell. LeBron James, of course, my favorite player, the GOAT, was a complete, and I'm going to say this as nice as I can, a complete ass the entire game, the entire night. Just seemed so out of it that he didn't care, and it really pissed me off. So you have players like that. Then you have players like the Chris Pauls and the Giannis's, guys who just want to go out there and perform and give the fans a show, which, heads up, is your job. All right? So thank you to Chris Paul for doing stuff like chasing down James Harden to steal the ball and ball out. Thank you for, Bradley Beal put on a good show. We had some good performances. Kyrie Irving was actually playing really hard. Bradley Beal was shooting the ball well. Steph Curry and Dame Lillard are one of the most ridiculous shooting pair that I have ever seen. Of course, one's the greatest shooter ever. And I might say Damian Lillard is the second greatest distance shooter in NBA history. And I said distance shooter, I mean 35 plus. So there's a lot of good that did happen. But my overall takeaway was that the NBA All-Star Weekend sucked. When you have players that don't care, when you have players that do care, when you have a commissioner that says we're not having a game, then puts on the game, and then, tries to say, hey, let's win some stuff for charity, and tries to make it tries to give them an olive branch, so to speak, to bring this thing together, and it doesn't happen, it looks a bit ridiculous. And you get, exactly the product that was out there come the NBA All-Star Day. So instead of a celebrity game, we had a rappers, a 2-on-2 rapper. I know DaBaby was on there. I think that's his name. Listen, guys, don't quote me. I am the same guy that has listened to Eminem since I was 6 to the point I am now, which is 25. I have listened to Eminem, Tupac, Snoop Dogg, NWA. That's about it. Those are my groups, right? I'm a very old school guy. but I think his name's DaBaby. I know who Quavo is, all right? So I know Quavo was there too. But it was a rapper 2-on-2. First off, Quavo is the only athletic rapper that I think is in the game today. Like, man's a stud. He can play some basketball. I heard he was a very good quarterback in high school. Like, Quavo was the only decent player on that court. So, that in and of itself, absolute joke. Like, here's the deal. You should have mixed it in with, like, I don't know, like a rapper mixed in with a former NBA player, right? Like an NBA player that can still move. Like an NBA player that can still play. But, maybe like a Corey Brewer. Somebody like that who's on that edge of like, was in the league last year. He's not really good enough to be on any teams this year. He's a little bit older. Bring out a guy like that. Mike Miller, still very much in shape, could still probably play. Like, bring guys out like that, mix them in with the rappers if this is what you're going to do. So that way you have some sensible athletes on the court. Because besides Quavo, it was the most bricks and air balls I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And I watch my 6-year-old niece play basketball on Saturdays. And when I say that there's an air ball like 12 times on one possession in those leagues, there is. And these are grown-ass men that are airballing the ball, hitting the side of the backboard. It was pathetic. So in and of itself, I had a bad taste right off the bat. Quavo was the only bright spot. He should have won MVP of the entire weekend. He was a lot of fun. He's a baller, but let's be honest, Quavo, like, there was no real competition out there. So I would have liked to have seen something different there. So that's before any of this started. Now let's get into, we have the skills challenge. So the skills challenge was fine. I really had no problem with it. It was an interesting winner of the skills challenge. I'm a big fan of, I like when stars participate in the skills challenges, the dunk contest, stuff like that, because it makes the level of the competition a lot more fun, and you get to see your stars do something more than just play at a high level. You get to see them, test their skills, and it would be a lot of fun to see them compete. It was a lot of fun when Kevin Durant played it was the horse competition, and I can't remember who he played against. But, stuff like that, when you have, Kevin Durant playing horse, this was about 6-7 years ago. These athletes being involved, these star athletes, I want to preface that, these star and megastar athletes being involved, make the weekend a whole lot better. When Dwayne Wade was in the skills competition, that's a lot of fun. So I understand the skills competition, while it's still good, it would have been a lot better, in my personal opinion, if these megastars would actually join in, because there's some megastars that I think could possibly dominate that competition. The Steph Currys of the world, the Damian Lillards. There's a lot of guys that I'd like to see out there. Trae Young. Those are guys that should be in the skills competition every single year. Then, of course, we move on to the three-point competition, which is always one of my favorites. Let's be honest, if Steph Curry's name is in a three-point competition, most of the time Steph Curry's walking away with that trophy, and that he did, and he looked like he was on just autopilot the entire time. If we would have seen a Steph Curry locked in, I think it would have been an absolute joke. But the three-point contest is always a lot of fun. I'd like to see a Steph versus Seth Curry. That would be a lot of fun. Get those two down on the three-point competition together. But I'm always a big fan of the three-point competition. That's a lot of fun. Now let's go, and let's go straight to the dunk contest, because I think this is what pissed me off the most. We have seen in recent history a guy blow out a cupcake at 13 feet high. We have seen in recent history a guy dunk on a 14-foot goal. We have seen in recent history a human being as pale and as ginger-haired as can be dunk over the hood of a Kia. That's all in recent history. We have seen a really fugly mascot for the Orlando Magic spin on one of those little hoverboard things in circles as Aaron Gordon grabbed it, dunked under his legs and up over his head, and blew people's minds. We have seen some incredible, incredible dunks in recent history. What the hell did we watch come All-Star Weekend? Now, I'm not trying to be mean here. Look at that Simons kid could get up, like a 40-inch vertical. He could get up. And, we had some decent dunks, I would say. Decent to start off. But you know what I don't want to see in my dunk competitions? A decent dunk. Do you know what I don't want to see in my dunk competitions? A dunk that is done 98% of the time in games. I don't want to see an in-game dunk in my dunk competitions. So you had Obi Toppins, you had Afferny, I think his name is Afferny. Is it Simmons or Simons? I don't know. I don't care. He won the competition, and he could have been one of the best dunks of the night, but he didn't do it the right way, but he was the only semi-okay athlete, I guess. And then, of course, we have Cassius Stanley. So, like, we had some guys that can fly. We had some guys that can dunk. I thought Cassius Stanley started off with a pretty decent dunk to start off the night. I was like, okay, this is going to go good. Then we had an okay, like the first round I thought was okay. You know, the first round should always be your, all right, this is an okay dunk, this is my warm-up dunk, but cool stuff is coming. The biggest prop we got on the entire dunk competition was Simons putting on a damn jersey. Like, usually, if you're going to he put on an old-school Tracy McGrady jersey. If you're going to put on an old-school jersey, you better be doing a dunk that was made famous by whoever, you know, that old-school person was. I don't want to see just an in-game dunk. Obi Toppins, I think his name. That boy, I'm sorry. While he's a decent dunker, his last dunk that he was raising the roof and praising for is something that I have seen LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I've seen all of these guys just do this like on the regular. Like, he didn't even jump from the free throw line, and everybody's like, oh, did you see that? He was 2 steps away from the free throw line. Great. Michael Jordan jumped from the damn free throw line. So if you're 2 steps in front of that, it's 2 steps worse. If I had to pay to go to that All-Star game, I would be begging the commissioner for my money back. The dunk contest was just an absolute joke. Now, what I did like about the dunk contest is at least the judges were being a lot harsher. Usually they just throw out 10s just for somebody completing a dunk. But, I mean, this year they were very tough. Listen, Cassius Stanley's first dunk I thought was going to be probably a 50 any other year, and he got like a 44 right off the bat. So right off the bat, I'm like, man, this is going to be a tough dunk competition. But at one point, like when Obi Toppins did his final dunk, and you know he's praising or raising the roof and praising himself, like you could literally see these dunk gurus and these old school NBA legends like just laughing. Like, are you joking? This is what you guys brought us? Zion Williamson, we'll talk about him in just a second, what a joke he was in the All-Star game. But Zion Williamson in high school has put together better highlights than the winner of the NBA dunk competition this year. Anthony Simons had an incredible athleticism, and he had a dunk where he was going to go up and kiss the rim and then windmill it. If he would have touched lips to rim, and I mean lips to rim, that would have been the walk-off. That is a 50 dunk, great dunk. But he's like 6 feet away, blows a kiss at the rim, and then just one hand dunks it, and we're all supposed to fall over and lose our minds. It was a joke. Absolute joke. When you see your own NBA colleagues sitting their asses down during a dunk competition, you know that they are not only bored, but that nobody in the entire world is impressed. Go back and look at any other dunk contest in history, and I guarantee you'll see 7 people with their phones out, usually Shaq laughing or losing his mind and falling over on people at one point, you know, during the dunk competition, with 7 rappers on the other side all losing their minds and running around the court. You know, like, it's, when it comes to the dunk competition, like, this is the, you know, how do I put this in a polite way? This is the, let's show your cojones. You know what I mean? Let's show them brass basketballs. Like, give us something good. It sucked. I will never, and I 100% mean this, I will never watch another NBA All-Star event if this is not fixed by next year. I don't give a damn that it's in the middle of a pandemic. That doesn't stop these people from dunking a basketball at an elite level. Now, I know it's easy for me to say. I'm a 5'11", white guy, so I get, like, it's easy for me to be like, you should have dunked better. But at the end of the day, from what we have seen in recent history from our dunkers and all these participants in the NBA All-Star Weekend, I think we deserve a little bit more than the McDonald's All-American, high school dunking competition. Zion Williamson's big ass should have been in that thing. Like, we deserve a lot more than what we got. So I apologize to the fans. I apologize to the dunk competition fans. Like, there was 2 or 3 decent dunks, but I'm not there to watch an in-game decent dunk. We're almost done. I promise. Finally, let's get to the All-Star Game. So I love the new format. I love that, you win each quarter. You get, 150. The NBA donates $150,000 to the charity that you're playing for. So that's a lot of fun because it makes each quarter not necessarily important, but it makes these players actually play for something, which is nice. And then when it comes down to the fourth quarter, I enjoy the fact that it's the race to 170. First one to get 170 wins it. So that's a lot of fun as well. Let's put it this way. LeBron is the best GM in all of basketball. Putting Damian Lillard and Steph Curry on your front court along with Luka Doncic, Jokic, LeBron James, if he actually gave a damn, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's the best GM. It's not even close. Now, I will say, a healthy Kevin Durant and a healthy Joel Embiid make that All-Star game interesting, but at the end of the day, LeBron James's team should have dominated, and they did. I think the best meme I saw all weekend, so the NBA, of course, like I said, donates money at each half. Let's put it this way. Kevin Durant's team didn't win a single thing. Didn't win a quarter, didn't win a half, didn't end up winning the All-Star game. They got blown out, in fact, by 15 or 20 points. So the best thing is it says Kevin Durant's team. It says the NBA goes up to him and is like, hey, we'll give you $150,000 if you win one quarter. And then the meme is Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard all standing there going, F those kids. Because, they didn't try. They were just bombing as many threes as possible. They got wiped off the floor with LeBron James's team, which they should have when you have Damian Lillard and Steph Curry bombing half-court threes and swishing them. It was absolutely ridiculous. So I'm not mad about that. But what does frustrate me is the simple fact that the level of competition in the All-Star game is just slowly getting worse and worse and worse. Why can't we go back to the early 2000s? Why can't we go back to the 80s when Jordan and these guys would just go at it? They would take each other one-on-one. It was a sense of pride. It was a I can't say that on air, but it was a measuring contest. You fill in the blank, whatever you're measuring, right? Who can outdo who? It's like that famous story. The USA basketball team had a big scrimmage, and they just played for hours and hours. And Magic Johnson's team versus Michael Jordan's team, and you hear great stories about stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I don't expect a lot of defense. I don't expect Michael Jordan's era to come back and save basketball. Arguably one of the greatest eras of basketball ever because they just played hard. Now, the skill is a lot better today, but, they played hard in the All-Star game, and it was a lot of fun. Move into the early 2000s. Listen, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, these guys were going at each other. It was a lot of fun in the early 2000s when you had, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade. These guys were just going back and forth at each other. It was a blast. That level of competition needs to come back and be put into the All-Star game. I would even say that last year was the best competition I have seen in recent years. Well, at least that last quarter. That race to 170, these guys wanted to actually win last year. That level of competition needs to come back. Otherwise, I might just be checking out of the NBA All-Star Break. Or All-Star Games. Let's take an All-Star Break, I should say. The level of competition's got to step up. I'm not just going to continue to watch. I expect Harlem Globetrotter-esque things. I expect bounce passes into awesome dunks. I expect deep-ass threes. I expect the score to be 170 to 169. But it literally looks like the coaches walked in and said, we're never playing defense. We're never rebounding the ball. Chuck up as many threes as you want, and, we'll move on. So all of that mixed into your players not actually wanting to be there just made it for an awful NBA All-Star night. I feel bad for those 2,500 fans that showed up. If it wasn't for, and this is 100% the truth, Damian Lillard and Steph Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I would dare say probably Bradley Beal and James Harden. If it wasn't for those 5 guys kind of just putting on a show and just being miraculous, I would have shut it off a lot earlier than I did. Now, I suffered all the way through, finished it, even though I had to be up at, 4:40 the next morning. I suffered through. But if it wasn't for them, I would have clicked that thing off at the end, at 5 minutes into the first quarter. The attitudes were poor from a lot of these all-time great players, mainly LeBron James being one of them. And it soured the weekend for me. But that's just me. I mean, maybe you guys enjoyed the NBA All-Star Weekend. Let me know. I'd love to know what you liked about it, what you hated about it. I will say there was a few bright spots. Steph Curry being in the spotlight for a few of them. The three-point contest was a lot of fun. Steph Curry and Damian Lillard putting on an absolute shooting clinic from half court was a lot of fun. Giannis balled out 16 for 16, so that was a lot of fun. But there was not really any good competition, so that's probably my biggest worries about it. And listen, I'm not saying let's play hard-ass defense and go crazy like it's the NBA Finals. But what I am saying is there's got to be some level of respect for the game when it comes to the NBA All-Star Weekend. Finally, to wrap up today, Dak Prescott got his contract. $160 million, about $75 million of it guaranteed signing bonus. Bunch of craziness. Here's the deal. Congratulations to the Dallas Cowboys. Congratulations to paying a quarterback that will never, ever, ever take you to a Super Bowl. Congratulations on the $22 million cap hit. Listen, here's the deal. I like Dak Prescott. I think he is a good quarterback. I am not going to invest this type of money, over $160 million. I'm not going to invest that kind of money in a quarterback that I don't see taking me to the Super Bowl. Clearly, the Dallas Cowboys think that Dak Prescott is that guy to take them to the Super Bowl, take them to the promised land. My thing is he's not been able to win a playoff game. He's not been able to even win a conference title with very good to excellent teams, with the best offensive line in football when he first started. Now, I'm not talking about maybe the last 2 years, but when Dak Prescott took over his first couple of years, he had one of the best teams in all of football. He wasn't able to accomplish it with all of that. What are they going to be able to do with a defense that is pretty poor right now? They've got they do have some money, so they need to go out and get two big free agents for the defensive side of the football. But is that enough to make these Dallas Cowboys respectable on defense? That I don't know. They've got an offensive line that was plagued with injuries last year. Are they going to come back healthy and ready to go? And they've got a running back that is one of the most inconsistent stars in the entire NFL. So are they going to try and move off of Zeke, maybe pick up something in the draft, clear some more cap space for some more weapons, maybe go after Aaron Jones? I don't know. They need to do a lot more than just add Dak Prescott to make this team a contender. And I just don't think Dak Prescott is that missing link to really push them to superstardom. Listen, if Deshaun Watson's still available, as the Texans have been talking about, I would have tried to make some sort of a deal with Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson. Now, I understand that Dak Prescott was on the franchise tag, but I don't know. I would have tried and worked something out to try and land Deshaun Watson there. But hey, at the end of the day, Dak Prescott has gotten paid. Congratulations. I did not think it was going to happen, and I also did not think you were going to be making the second most money behind Patrick Mahomes, because you don't deserve it. But hey, Cowboys fans, I hope you're happy you've got your quarterback for at least the next 4 years until he tries to hold you hostage for another $47 million a year. So congratulations to the Dallas Cowboys. Well, that is it. What a show is in the books. Thank you again to Miranda Maverick. Make sure you follow her on her social media. Stay up to date with everything she's doing. Support her. The Locker Room is now one of her big supporters, so support us as well, because that would be a lot of fun. But we really do appreciate you guys listening. As always, we love you. I call you the Locker Room Faithful because you are. You come back time and time again. You've been with us through all of the growing pains, and like I said, we are only getting bigger and better from here. So thank you for staying with us. Follow us on our social media. Once again, guys, I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.